All right, welcome into SportsBit Betting Insight today, Wednesday, June 8th. Huge big game breakdown coming up. Game 3 NBA Finals. We also have the Nationals and the White Sox, Red Sox and the Giants. Team preview today in the NFL, the 49ers and the play of the day. Let's start with some baseball. We've been telling you on SportsBit about this Mets lineup. Duda and Wright on the DL. Cespedes and Granderson not hitting. Pathetic showing yesterday, getting swept in the doubleheader by the Pirates, Teddy.
Yeah, and scary thing for the Mets. I mean, they got gems from DeGrom and Mets, and they still end up losing both ends of that doubleheader. 9 hits in 18 innings for the Mets. The Mets have scored 2 runs in their last 3 full games. This is a lineup that isn't hitting right now. If you're betting on the Mets, you may want to make sure that you have some under in your pocket as well, because this team looks like every game right now is going to be 3-2, 2-1, 4-3 type of contest.
Yeah.
This is not a potent lineup with all the injuries.
Here we go. Bad beat. Reds bullpen again gets involved. Oh, my God. If he had the under, that is tough with the Cardinals and the Reds.
Yeah, I mean, it's that Reds bullpen, man. 5-run lead with 2 innings to go? No, that's not enough, Pauly. Tony Cingrani blows the save. Cingrani now has 5 saves and 5 blown saves. That's not a good ratio for your closer. Then, of course, Votto goes yard in the bottom of the 9th for the Reds walk-off. Underbetter certainly didn't like that sequence. And, of course, we don't talk about it very often. Reverse run line players took a bad beat with that one. If you had Cincy and you were laying a run and a half, that wasn't very fun at all. But, of course, if you're playing Cincy under or Cincy minus 1.5, not the first bad beats you suffered this year and not the last. That Reds bullpen is continually, it's just a gas can, Paul, and it's not going to get any better.
Yeah, worst of all time. Has to be. We were surprised Keuchel was favored on the road yesterday, but if you are making a fortune, if you've been betting on the Rangers, they have beat the Astros now 12 straight at home. They get another win at home against the Astros. And talk about this, Teddy, about the amount of money you're making betting on the Rangers.
Well, let's put it this way. Texas is by far the single most profitable team to support in MLB this year. It's not even close. Texas is up 20 units. Number 2 team, Baltimore, we'll talk about them in a minute, they're up 10 units. Mm-hmm. And that has to do with 2 factors. One is that the wise guys hate the Rangers. They don't like the Texas starting pitching, so you're not laying a premium for any of the Rangers starting pitchers, at least so far. When we look at that, it just seems like every game they play, there's wise guy money, or many games that they play, there's wise guy money coming in against the Rangers. So up 20 units on the season. Another anti-wise guy winner over Houston last night. You're right. 12 straight wins at home versus the Astros. And remember, they've done it with Prince Fielder being ice cold.
Yes.
And a starting pitching staff that's just not wowing people.
Yeah.
So this team's been remarkably profitable so far. And I'm not seeing a whole lot of signs that it's going to slow down as the calendar moves into June.
Now to the Orioles. The books took a beating on this one. This was bet up from 112 to 145. Easy win for the Orioles at home.
Yeah, and again, Texas number 1 in Major League Baseball by far in profitability. Baltimore now is up to number 2. They're up 10 units on the campaign. And, the books got destroyed on that game last night. We talked about the Royals' offensive woes on SportsBit a couple times in the last week. And yesterday we highlighted it. Guess what? Held to a single run again on Tuesday. And, the brawl's going to get all the highlights on SportsCenter.
Yep.
But the reality is that Baltimore has made their backers a good chunk of change this year. And KC right now, they're really tanking offensively.
Cubs were $2. They get beat by the Phillies. The way to go now is the markets have adjusted. You got to bet the Cubs on the run line.
Yeah, really. They were $2 chalk at Philly on Tuesday. Lost that game. Now 5-3 in their last 8 games. So, and yet in that span, they're down 2 units. They were priced at minus 160 or higher in 12 of the last 13. They've been minus $2 or higher in 10 of those 13 ball games. So it's real hard to make money betting the Cubs right now. The books have adjusted. That being said, Paul, you brought up the excellent point. Chicago on the run line makes a ton of sense. We know how potent this lineup is. We know how good the pitching staff has been. And while we make fun of the bullpen at times, it's still a pretty darn solid bullpen. So when you're playing Chicago on the run line, you're not laying those enormous prices and getting beaten up when they lose. And the numbers bear it out. They are by far the most profitable team to support on the run line this year, up more than 16.5 units on the campaign.
So, that's the good. Now, how about the bad? Obviously, it's got to be the Twins. Horror show this year.
Yeah. I mean, Minnesota entered last night ranked dead last in baseball, down more than 20 units through 56 games. And this is something we talked about in our MLB previews prior to the season. We said, hey, whoever stinks in the American League is going to get killed because the league is so competitive. There aren't any bottom feeders. You say Oakland, yeah, Oakland's mediocre. The Angels, yeah, they're mediocre. Mm-hmm. The Twins are the only team that really stinks. I keep saying they're going to lose 100. In fact, they could lose 110, and no one would be shocked. And, of course, after saying all this, the Twins rally from behind. Tough beat if you had Miami last night. Minnesota with 3 late home runs and 6.2 innings of scoreless relief work as they rallied to beat a Marlins team that just didn't get in. We talk about Texas not getting anything from Prince Fielder. Boy, Giancarlo Stanton is in a nasty slump, and he's just not getting out of it, Pauly. It really hurt Marlins backers last night.
Yep, no doubt about that. Up next, can the Cavs make it a series? Big game breakdown coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much more.
Time for Big Game Breakdown. Remember, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Game 3 NBA Finals. Pick 206 the total. Teams down 0-2 in finals history, 3-28 all time. The 3 teams that were able to do it come back and win: the 06 Heat, the 77 Blazers, and the 69 Celtics. Adjusted series price, Warriors minus $9. Biggest scoring differential in finals history through the first 2 games. All right, there's 3 important questions here, Teddy. Question number 1, is there anything that Lou and the Cavs can do from an X's and O's standpoint? What do you think?
I think there are certainly some things they can do from X's and O's. Not a lot. They just have to play better. And there's a couple of guys in particular. I mean, I'm going to talk about Kyrie Irving a lot in this big game breakdown. Kyrie Irving's got to be the guy for Cleveland. He shot the ball poorly. He's distributed the ball poorly. He's an ace-level player. I mean, he's someone that Cleveland is counting on to bring an all-star level game, and he's been badly outplayed. So if you're talking about X's and O's to fix this, it starts with better play at the point from the Cleveland Cavaliers. But 4 times in 5 games, I don't think there's any X's and O's that are going to fix that. Game 3, however, yeah, it's possible. Certainly, the one thing that we keep seeing from Golden State in terms of quotes are, we got to bring our energy. We got to bring that same energy.
Yep.
And that always concerns me when I see teams talking about that, because they're already thinking about it in the back of their heads. So that's not really an X's and O's. That's all mental. But, you asked the question, what about you? I mean, you think there's any X's and O's that the Cavs can bring to fix the problem?
2 things. They can go back and play like they did last year, which is iso ball and post up LeBron and milk some clock. Blatt's got to be laughing watching how this series has played out so far. Another thing, Kevin Pelton brought this up from ESPN. How about they just bomb threes and hope they go in and get hot and can crash the boards? That's 2 things that they could do there. But even if Lou can go with some X's and O's adjustments, can we count on the Cavs to execute?
Well, and that's the question. Do they have the will to execute anyway? Because let's be honest, we saw a quit from Cleveland in Game 2.
No doubt.
And that's not something I expected to see from the Cavs in what you and I had talked about as being a must-win game. Now they're calling this one a must-win game again. But more than anything with Cleveland, I worry about the gut punch. If they take a punch, and a tough one, and, Curry hits a couple of bombs, and next thing you know, Golden State goes on a 12-1 run or something like that, does Cleveland have that intestinal fortitude to fight back? That's my bigger concern than X's and O's for the Cavs, because I'm with you, and certainly, and while you're talking about Pelton making that suggestion, I'm with you. I think Cleveland needs to bomb away from three-point range. They got all these three-point shooters. They haven't gotten them good looks here in the first 2 games of this series, and if the Cavs are going to win, that's probably their best chance. But when it comes to withstanding the punches, taking a punch and fighting back, Cleveland hasn't taken that many punches in the postseason. The one time they did against Toronto when they lost games 3 and 4, they rallied back strong with a Game 5 blowout at home and then closed out the series in Game 6. So they were able to survive some of those punches and bounce back. But in this instance, You know, you talk about the mentality of a team that's now lost, what, seven
Seven
straight
in a
to
row.
their opponent. Yeah. And failed to reach 100 in any of those ball games.
Yep.
That has to be, in my mind, the bigger of the two concerns.
You know, it's a tough call because the spot screams Cleveland, but I mean, look what. So you're right, 7 in a row they beat them, 6 blowouts, 6 of them in routes, and you go back to Sunday, where they had 20 turnovers. They didn't really get to the free throw line. Steph and Clay were average, and they beat them by 33. So one more question: is it a blessing in disguise if Kevin Love doesn't play? Didn't practice, questionable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a better image to capture the first 2 games of this series than looking at Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love moving in the opposite direction of where Steph Curry just passed the ball. A great picture here, thanks to our photo editor. But the answer, you know, will they get anything from Love? They're probably better off without him. And if you like Cleveland, and I say that on the level that A, Love's going to bring defensive issues, and B, Love is not a guy who's going to take over a game and be that type of a difference maker for Cleveland. They give his minutes to Tristan Thompson. I think they may be better shooter. And of course, if you like Cleveland, the markets will react to this game. We opened up talking about how this game is priced at Pick'em.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's priced at Pick'em, but you know, when you look around from book to book, there are dramatic differences here. The square books, the books that cater to recreational players, the Bovadas of the world, they all have the Warriors as chalk. You look at the wise guy books, your Pennies and your Heritage and those type of books of the world. They've all got Cleveland as chalk. You can right now bet Cleveland plus 1.5 and Golden State plus 1.5 if you shop around. That's not always the case, but we know the markets will react whichever way Love is going to be. If he's in, the wise guy money's going to come for Cleveland.
Yeah.
It already has. There'll be more of it. If he's out, we'll see additional Golden State money. So the fact that the Cavs likely to be underdogs if Love doesn't play makes me think if you like Cleveland, you know, maybe you'd rather take a point or two and not have Kevin Love in the lineup.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So when you talk about rings, you got to mention Phil Jackson. He's got so many rings. What'd you think of his comment about what LeBron should do in Game 3?
Well, let's read that comment real quick. Quote, I think it's going to take something for LeBron to step into that. Put his cape on and say, I'm going to have to take over a lot of this series, doing the things beyond my level or my normal capacity. He's been a team player up to this point, but I think he's going to have to step beyond that. And of course, what Phil Jackson is saying is, guess what, LeBron? You got to be Michael Jordan right now.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, Jackson knows as much as anyone about coaching major egos. He knows as much as anyone about winning championship rings. But I don't know if he knows as much as anyone about what that Golden State defense has done to what Cleveland has been trying to do. You know, that Warriors defense has been quick enough and smart enough to anticipate just about everything that the Cavs have tried to accomplish on the offensive end of the court.
Yep, top 5 defense for a reason. And here's LeBron yesterday. Quote, I think for me to go out and be who I am and play as true to the game and hard as I can and try to lead the team, that's who I am, not anybody else. I'm not Michael, I'm not Ali, I'm not nobody else that's done so many great things for the sport, end quote. That's interesting too, which, you know, I agree with Phil. He has to be aggressive, he has to get to the free throw line. Another thing that was weird, after 2 days off in Game 2, he goes on the bench with 4 minutes left in the first quarter. He can't do that. I need you on the floor.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, in theory, they're saving him, you know, save your energy for the second half, save your energy for the fourth quarter. Didn't matter in Game 2, but I mean, the biggest problem for Cleveland offensively in this series, no one's been able to create shots for LeBron.
Yeah.
You know, Irving, more turnovers and assists. Cleveland players other than LeBron, 21 turnovers versus 14 assists. Obviously, that is a stat that has to change in a big way, and it's possible to change, but the guy is Kyrie Irving. If Irving is driving and dishing, if Irving is setting up his teammates, if Irving is the consummate playmaker, Cleveland's live in Game 3. If he isn't, they're not.
All right, Game 2. Remember, liveoddsportsbookreview.com. Let's go Major League Baseball. The Nationals against the White Sox. Scherzer against Shields. Can he become Big Game James again? Nationals $1.50, eighth the total. After opening 2-7 with an ERA of 4 and change for the Padres, he's smiling now. Why? He's out of San Diego. At least he's got a chance to make the playoffs, Teddy.
Yeah, he's got a chance to make the playoffs. Of course, he's with a team that's now 6-19 in the last 25 games. The White Sox are falling apart. You know, you leave San Diego, and you go into another situation that's not real good. But, I mean, here's the story with James Shields. We're talking about a guy who has put up an enormous number of innings. 9 straight seasons of more than 200 innings pitched. 7 seasons of more than 215 during that span. So you got to wonder, after 9 straight years of 200 innings, how much is left in the tank? The career numbers versus the 2016 numbers declined in every way, particularly the home run to fly ball rate. The walks per 9 inning is way down. The FIP is way up. You know, there are a lot of concerns here for James Shields. And then again, the White Sox might not need him to be an ace. They just might want him to burn innings.
Yep. That's a good point there. We'll get back to that in a second. I want to do Scherzer. Scherzer could be wearing down. We've talked about this on sports, but 6 straight seasons of at least 185 innings. And look at this decline. Look at this graphic. 2015, 2016. ERA up. FIP up. Walks per 9 innings up. Home runs way up. Look at the home runs. Career worst home runs to fly ball ratio. And Scherzer not getting it done there. And he got roughed up earlier in Wrigley as the Cubs took him deep in that one. No, you had a good quote here from Sale about what Shields can bring to the club.
Yeah, very much so. And this is definitely something that's worth noting because we talk about James Shields. No, the guy's not an ace-level hitter right now, or he certainly hasn't been at any point this season. But it's not about being an ace-level hurler. It's about eating innings. Chris Sale, quote, "You have to have a lot of respect for him. It's not easy. You don't just roll out of bed and throw 200 innings. For him, it seems that way. You know, it just takes stress off everybody else. It takes stress off the next starting pitcher. It takes stress off the bullpen. And he's going to give us some quality innings as well. He's still got a lot left in the tank, so we're looking forward to that." What do you think, Pauly? James Shields in Chicago. Is he going to help the White Sox win the pennant?
No. God, no.
Yeah, exactly.
No, when they've been playing. No. But it's a desperation move. And I think they're taking a shot at least. One more.
Well, they got him for pennies on the dollar. I mean, they have to pay his huge salary, but in terms of trade acquisitions, they didn't deal a whole lot.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, it makes a ton of money. Red Sox, Giants, good matchup here. Price against Mad Bum. Giants at home, $1.25, 6.5 the total. Red Sox, another team that paid a huge amount for a first-rate starter, got out of the gate slow, but suddenly the price has been right lately.
It sure has. 7-2 with a 4.88 ERA, but the fielding end and pitching, 3.35. The xFIP, 3.38. Shows the ERA is fluky, and of course the ERA has been going in the right direction. We would expect that to regress to the mean as well. 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, that's a career high. Plenty of spark from his stuff, Paul.
And then you got Ortiz, which he's not going to play because of the National League, and Hanley's going to play at first base. How about a guy winning the MVP and calling it quits? That could happen. Ortiz hitting .340, on-base percentage of .424, slugging percentage of .732, on pace for career highs across the board. You look at this graph, it's 2016 offensive WAR, number 1 in the game. So you lose the best offensive player in the sport with no DH, and that matters big time. And you almost feel cheated as a fan because we don't get that Mad Bum Ortiz matchup that we want to see.
Oh, yeah, that'd be better than one of the better one-on-ones for the season. I mean, Mad Bum, he's been a monster. 7-2, 1.91 ERA. His strikeouts at a career best, 10.6 strikeouts per 9 innings. And let's not forget, you're taking Big Pappy out on the one side.
Yeah.
On the other side, you're putting in Bumgarner with 11 home runs and 29 RBIs over the last 3 years. Yeah. Price hasn't had a hit since 2010. 0 for 32 without a walk.
Yeah. He told Bochy he wants to get in a home run derby. And Bochy said, I don't know if that's a good idea. Hell, why not? I think he's hit 2 off Kershaw in his career. Think about that. That's amazing. Up next, NFL team previews. The San Francisco 49ers. Could be a rough season, but they get Chip Kelly. We'll talk about that and the play of the day on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
All right, deep dive, the 49ers. Last year, dumpster fire. 5-11. Straight up. 7-9 ATS. 9-7 of the other. -5 in turnovers. And Chip Kelly takes over. An embarrassment what's happened to that organization. Harbaugh had him in the NFC Championship game year after year after year. They couldn't get along. They couldn't work it out. Tom Sula comes in, disaster. And I think Chip Kelly's a good coach. Started 10-6 back-to-back years in Philly. If we could just give Chip Kelly a quarterback Who knows what this guy was able to do? Wins 10 games back-to-back years with Foles and Sanchez, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, Kaepernick's a quarterback. Gabbert's a quarterback. I mean, Gabbert had a disaster in Jacksonville, obviously, playing behind a miserable offensive line. And Kaepernick kind of fell apart last year, but, he's the guy who quarterbacked the Eagles to those, or to the 49ers, I should say, to those championship games.
Yeah.
And the ongoing battle, I mean, I read something yesterday, Paul, that said Gabbert has the edge. I read something else that says Kaepernick has the edge. I would be surprised, even though there are some that are reporting that Gabbert may be the guy. I think if Cap is healthy, he's going to win this job. I think Chip Kelly wants him over Blaine Gabbert.
Well, can he win the job? I think confidence is a big issue. It's fascinating. The guy's one play away from winning a Super Bowl against Baltimore. I think he's got the yips. I think he's Mackie Sasser or Steve Sachs. They're playing Green Bay last year. Reggie Bush is 5 yards in front of him. He throws it right into the ground. And he couldn't even complete a simple 10-yard out most of the time either. So we'll see if he's got something in his head or if he can work this out and become the quarterback he was with Harbaugh. But we'll see.
I mean, that's a big reason, Paul, why this offense was ranked number 31 last year. I mean, their mainstream numbers were atrocious. You say, hey, they went 5-11 straight up, 7-9 ATS. For having the 31 ranked offense and the 29th ranked defense and a -5 turnover margin, that's actually not that bad. They could have been much, much worse. Now, the thing with Chip Kelly taking over, I mean, we need to talk about Philadelphia. Let's remake our entire roster and playbook, and then the quarterback gets hurt and we have a bad year, and let's just give up on the whole thing and starting from scratch. Well, now that's going to have to happen in San Francisco. Kelly's taking over. It's a roster that's made for a makeover. You know what I mean? They have a ton of cap space. They didn't spend most of it. In terms of, they're not like, we got to sign a whole bunch of free agents this offseason. The fact that now we're going to see significant roster turnover in San Francisco, the same way we saw in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
It's probably a good thing, not a bad thing, because this team was pretty stale last year, and they certainly weren't buying what Tom Shula was selling.
Bush and Bolden free agents, they had all that money to spend. They decided not to spend anything. And I think the problems go back to York and Belke as well. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of a meaningful departure, I mean, Alex Boone be the one name that stood out to me as a meaningful departure. And when we talk about skill position talent, Carlos Hyde, Torrey Smith, those are the top two guys. I don't know if those are the type of playmakers you want to score quick strike touchdowns in the NFL. Hyde certainly has some upside. Smith is best as a slot receiver, not as a number one guy. So they don't have a lot of quick strike potential with this offense. But, you bring up the billionaire baby thing, and I think that's worth talking about here.
Yes.
Because this, from an organizational standpoint, I don't know, there are a lot of organizations in the NFL that are worse than the San Francisco 49ers right now. You have, the billionaires' kids who have now inherited a franchise, and I'm not convinced they know what to do with it. Certainly, based on what happened with Harbaugh, based on what's happened since Harbaugh left, I'm pretty convinced they don't know how to do with it. And that is a long-term problem. Just ask any Knicks fan how much fun it is to have James Dolan as your owner. Yep. San Francisco is kind of going into that same type of void that is not going to be easy for them to get out of, because I'm not impressed with management in San Francisco.
He's a great coach. He's won at every stop, and he's going to turn Michigan into a contender, and he did a good job in his first season. An egregious error by the 49ers to let Harbaugh walk. How about the schedule last year?
Well, I mean, last year San Francisco played toughest anyone in the NFL. I mean, just a brutal slate. Part of that has to do with the fact that their division, with Arizona and Seattle, are arguably the two best teams in the NFC. And, of course, St. Louis is no bottom feeder. But last year with a brutal schedule, this year just tougher than average. So it's still tough, but not one of the 2 or 3 toughest schedules in the NFL. But I'll tell you what, that's one of the hidden factors in strength of schedule, Pauly. It sucks to be a bottom feeder in a very competitive division, because all the other teams in that division will beat up on you 6 times instead of 3.
How about this year? What do you think?
Well, again, this year it's slightly tougher than average, but not ridiculously bad. They play the Saints at home in Week 9, and the only home games the rest of the year, well, they have the Pats, the Seahawks, and the Jets. Of course, the season ends in January. That's tough. They have 4:10 a.m. Pacific time starts. So that's the West Coast team traveling east. There are 2 extra games, Dallas and at Chicago, 2 teams that are likely to be better than they were a season ago. So from a scheduling standpoint, a little bit easier than last year, but not ridiculously easy. Not one of the easier slates in the NFL by any stretch of the imagination. But, $49 million in cap space still, Pauly. $49 million that they've chosen not to use, at least so far.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Kaepernick. I don't like Gabbert. Not a lot of talent, not a lot of weapons to throw to. I see the only way you can look here is under.
I wouldn't even think about betting this team over the top.
Yep. That's strong. Yeah. And if you had them, no matter when you got a piece of that last year, you cashed your ticket. If you bet it early, if you waited, no sweat if the 49ers to go under last year.
That was one of the biggest season win total line moves I've ever seen in my life, Paul. And again, I've been in Vegas since '98. The first book opened San Fran 8.5 wins. By the time the regular season rolled around, they were aligned at 6.5 wins with the under minus 200.
Oh my God.
The books took a beating on this team last year. Absolute beating in the season win total marketplace. Obviously, this year, priced much lower than they were a season ago.
Let's close with a bang. Money time. Play of the day. Where are we going?
Let's get up and over the total. White Sox and Nationals over 8. We saw Todd Frazier hitting his 19th homer for the White Sox last night, becoming a major challenge for Max Scherzer and his gopher ball ways. Let's look for a high-scoring slugfest at the Cell. White Sox and Nationals over 8. Game number 927, 928. That's our play of the day.
All right, a lot of fun as always. Big show tomorrow. Recap Game 3 of the NBA Finals and the Seattle Seahawks team preview coming up with the deep dive. That's on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.